I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. Telephone number 870-275-9799. If you would like to contribute to the program. Man, we got a great show for you. We're going to be talking to Angel Mom from We Build the Wall, Marianne Mendoza, coming up at the bottom of this hour. Then I want to introduce you next hour to a business owner in Pocahontas, Arkansas. You might have seen his piece in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, his business attempting to sell products that are made in America, this agenda to buy American. His name is Chad Overman, and Chad Overman will be on the program 7:33 this morning, so we're excited to talk to him. In the meantime, we got a lot of news to get to. I don't know where to start. I will tell you it was encouraging to me to see the citizens of Jonesboro defeat a 1-cent sales tax increase in a special election of all things yesterday. Typically, historically, that doesn't happen. Yesterday at this time, I believe the voter turnout in early voting was around 17%. The average voter turnout in special elections from 1981 to 2018 is 19%. And I think the total voter turnout yesterday was, let me see here, almost 27%, so 26% voter turnout. Now, normally, what are you going to have, in a general election, you'd have had something like 44, 46% turnout. So it was still low, but that is higher, than, statistics say the average is. So that lets you know. And I kind of, that was kind of my suspicion yesterday. The more people that turn out and vote, the higher the voter turnout, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to pass a tax increase in a special election. It lost by 211 votes. That's the headline on the front page above the fold of the Jonesboro Sun this morning. Tax increase proposal defeated by 211 votes. Keith Inman has the story there. I found it, I found it encouraging because, once again, the community that I live in is essentially checking their own city government in a way. Well, I know there was the Team Jonesboro movement that wanted that very much there's the article there, that very much wanted the tax increase, and how they went about it was, let's just say how they went about it, let's just say, was very interesting to me. I don't ever know when I would be for a tax increase, or at least starting the conversation, but if I was for a tax increase, this is not the way I would go about it. But you know what? That's all hindsight. Speaking of tax increases, let me just say, in all likelihood, most people voted against this because they did not agree with lumping the two issues together, the quality of life with the police and fire. I actually believe that there's really no pun intended, there's really no fire here for those that wanted the tax to pass, because I think in the general election, my prediction is that in the general election, there's going to be another vote for a tax increase for just police and fire, standalone police and fire. And it will allow the police and fire in the city of Jonesboro to get what they need. And Bobby Long, Councilman Bobby Long, for example, I mean, he had a proposal, and now Team Jonesboro, according to the front page of the Jonesboro Sun, Team Jonesboro is now blaming Bobby Long and his resolution for derailing theirs. Now they're saying it caused confusion, but it didn't cause confusion. They're trying to they're misattributing that. They're just upset that people rejected it. It didn't cause confusion. It gave people an alternative outlook, saying, "Hey, I can vote against this, and we're going to likely have another vote down the road. There will be a proposal put out there where we can just vote for police and fire." And I will say this also. The citizens of Jonesboro, and this really goes for everybody in the state, but the citizens of Jonesboro got a taste of what the Arkansas General Assembly and the legislature does all the time. They take an issue that doesn't have quite a majority support, and then they pair it with an issue that everybody's for, like police and fire and public safety. And they put them together, and then they say, vote for it. And if you vote against it, then you're against this really popular thing. But we're also going to give this, we're also going to subsidize somebody's hobby, or we're going to put a water park in or whatever. The citizens of Jonesboro rejected it. Yeah, by 211 votes. Let's see here. You had 4,805 voting in favor, with 5,016 voting against. So, if we want to move forward with unity, I just think there's a few things that need to be talked about. We need to talk about what the citizens of Jonesboro were fundamentally being asked to do. They were being asked to give a city government more money that has, in the past not spent, and there's evidence of this, has not spent the money that we've already given them in a wise manner. That's what we were being asked to do. We're being asked to reward bad decisions in the past with more of our hard-earned tax dollars. And I think a lot of people wanted to give more money. I think a lot of people wanted to pay a higher tax, but they didn't want to reward negative behavior. And so, and this is another thing I can't wrap my head around with this whole thing. The people of Team Jonesboro mean well, very good good intentions. But they were, at least the public event that I went to, they were critical of what the city government has done in the past, how they've spent their money in the past. And so what I don't understand is why they wouldn't see that they're now advocating to give the city government more money with the promise of, well, we'll hold them accountable this time. Why don't some of these people on Team Jonesboro run for city council? In many cases, you've had the same people on the city council for a long time. So I think that's more of a way, instead of kind of proposing this or advocating this and then not really having any actual, well, I'm just advocating this. I think some of these people, especially the one, this is what's fascinating to me as well. And I'm going to shut up about this here in a minute because we got to move on. But I have to say this. You had 11 out of 12 city council men or women vote for this tax increase, effectively to send it to the people, which is a vote for it. You had one who didn't, Bobby Long. Then you have the police who come out and are for it. You have the fire chief that come out and is for it. You have, the mayor, obviously. You also have a situation where, from what I can tell, the media was largely for this. And you can tell they were largely for this. They also did talk about opposing ideas as well, so that's good. But it's interesting to me. I just think all of these people need to take a step back and they need to say, are we really, are our ideas actually mainstream as we thought they were? Because, if we're really trying to represent the people that are voting for us and putting us in power in the first place, might want to take a step back and just think, you know, this was actually, I mean, I know it's billed, is reported on as a grassroots movement, but it's actually, it was actually a very establishment thing. And the establishment of Jonesboro lost last night. That's what actually happened. And there's plenty of people who voted against the establishment yesterday that want to fund police and fire. So why don't we just do the thing that we can all agree on first? And then if you want a water park or a aquatic center or bike trails, the people have a right to vote for that separately, number one. And number two, they have a right to know that this money that this tax will raise will specifically go to fund this project, not we're going to raise a bunch of money and then form a committee and then decide how the money is spent. That's another reason people voted against this thing. I mean, would you run your household that way? Where you just, well, I don't really know I'll decide later what I'm going to spend this money on, but I'm going to go ahead and take out the loan now. I'm going to go ahead and take out a giant loan from the bank, and I'll figure out what I want to spend it on later, or what business I want to buy, or what buildings I want to build. Nobody would operate that way. So that's another thing that you have to think about. There's a way to do this responsibly, and I just think the people said no. You know, we don't, and there's a huge trust factor as well, by the way. I saw that somebody on Facebook was calling with this whole thing who was for it. They were for the tax on Facebook last night. They were for the tax, and they were calling for new city officials. They said, you know, we're for this tax, but you can make a good argument that we shouldn't have been given the money, and so we need, you know, new council people, new mayor, and everything else. And what's fascinating with this is a lot of people don't realize that it made the paper in the last week. Terrible timing for Team Jonesboro. That the mayor decided to vote for, it was a close vote, city council, close vote as to whether or not the Malco movie theater is going to be able to serve alcohol. Joe, did you hear about this? Well, the mayor apparently decided to vote for it, and essentially was the deciding vote in going ahead and allowing Malco to serve alcohol at the movie theater. Well, this was something that was unpopular with people around here, and a lot of people said when the mayor did that, it kind of sealed the fate of Team Jonesboro's movement. I mean, that's what people say. Because, I mean, you know, it doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. Every place else is selling alcohol, but there are some people that are like, yeah, but I'd drop my, you know, you could drop your junior high kids off at the movie for a night and pick them up after the movie's over. I mean, maybe parents don't want their kids surrounded, you know, and surrounded is a relative term, surrounded by alcohol. I don't know. Anyway. But there's people that have a problem with that. And a lot of people say that was a factor in the defeat last night as well. Again, 211 votes. You know, here is what the leader of Team Jonesboro said, quote, "To me, that means that the citizens of Jonesboro have not definitely decided that they are against investing in their community." Well, the vote is pretty definite. We can agree there. Surely you're not suggesting that the vote's not definite, because the vote is what it is. To me, it means we lost by 200 votes, and that's all it means. Team Jonesboro stands committed to move forward with its overall mission of knocking down some walls and creating a better unified city. We need to bring quality of life to Jonesboro. Okay. Well, again, I know Team Jonesboro means well, but I'm on the email list, and I got an email yesterday from Team Jonesboro, and they said, hey, today's last day to vote, go vote. And it was a nicely written, hey, do you want better, I'm paraphrasing, but, you know, do you want better sidewalks? Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want all of this stuff? Of course you do. So go and vote for Team Jonesboro. That's what the email said. Go vote for Team Jonesboro. And I'm thinking, I've never seen anything like this in my life. I've never seen anything like this in covering politics. It's a vote for a tax increase, and you're telling people to go vote for it, but you never say go vote for the tax increase. It's go vote for Team Jonesboro. They somehow created They somehow created a phantom political candidate, as if Team Jonesboro, whatever that is, was a candidate running for public office. I mean, if you read the email, you would think that you wouldn't even know. You think that there's some candidate called Team Jonesboro that wants, nicer sidewalks and bike trails. To me, I think most people, well, clearly most, by 211, by 211 votes, they don't understand what that is. This club or team mentality, when we're really just talking about whether the citizens should be rewarding a city government with more of their hard-earned tax dollars.
Maybe that's the eventual aspiration for Team Jonesboro, is to be a organization of the people, by the people, that pushes political candidates. And they're using this time period of trying to get things passed in the city to gain trust with the people.
Maybe, and again, I mean, I don't
know. I'm not attributing motives. I'm just saying this is a possibility.
Well, to me, it was just an odd thing to do, to create kind of a it's almost like I don't want to say, I can't think of anything other than Bruce Wayne deciding what type of superhero he wants to be, and it's like, well, we need to be more than a man. I need to be an ideal, a Batman, something that strikes terror in the hearts of men. But the reverse of that, obviously, it just was odd. Vote for Team Jonesboro. What do you mean by that? A lot of people don't know what that means when we're just talking about a tax increase. Vote for the tax increase if you want.
Yeah,
these things.
Vote for the idea, not the organization.
Anyway, I don't know. It was the whole thing was very interesting to me. Been a very interesting summer. So, let's see. We have any more quotes here? Here's what Ira Stevens said. Ira Stevens, it's time to go to work and try to fund our police and fire the way they should be and work on the necessities around here. So Ira Stevens, she was the head of the Taxed Enough group, and Iris essentially saying, look, we want to fund our police and fire. We're going to fund our police and fire. We just didn't want this other. We just didn't want this other half cent that nobody knew really specifically what it was going to be used for. Anyway, we do have to take a break, and we're going to be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment. He is the president of the Family Council here in Arkansas. He's been fighting for family values, traditional American values, at the Capitol in Little Rock here in Arkansas for decades. His name is Jerry Cox. Jerry, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing well, Paul. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm just trying to bring people the news. One of those stories from this weekend was this headline in the Gazette: Arkansans traveling for abortions, data shows. What were your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, people have always crossed state lines to have abortions. A lot of times it's because they don't want to be seen in an abortion facility in their hometown. And so that's always been the case. But I felt like that story was reaching to try to fulfill some sort of narrative that the person that wrote the story wanted to fulfill. To me, it just didn't fit that much, because actually
in
the number
Arkansas,
of people leaving
every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Got a few of your comments here. Bill on Facebook writing that Team Jonesboro will now likely be against Alderman Long's proposal to fund police and fire permanently. It takes away their leverage in another election. Yeah, that's maybe. I would hope not, because I think there's a lot of people that were voting no to send a message. We want to vote yes, but only on this. So give the people what they want. But I see your point, Bill. That's possible. There's also other things to consider here. Team Jonesboro could use their persuasion, the same skills of persuasion that they used to get this tax passed, to get the special election passed. And they could ask the city to trim a quarter cent from their budget and then use that money to fund what they want. I mean, come on, let's be real here. If the people don't want to give more money, but you still want the city to do better things, then maybe we should reevaluate what we're spending our money on now and see if we can find savings. I mean, was there even a discussion about that? I mean, has there been a serious discussion? Like, what if we took a quarter of a cent of what we're getting now and trimmed our belt a little bit and then just at least have the discussion? It was like that'll cut services. Let's define what essential services are. Let's define what that is, I think this is going to get more interesting, and again, I think there's nothing to panic about here. A lot of people waking up, I saw a lot of people like, I can't believe that the tax failed. Well, that's maybe you're living in a little bit of a bubble, but it's okay. We all have our own, bubbles and sphere of influences. And listen, I've been shocked before at the outcome of an election. I mean, I have. It's no fun, when things don't go your way. But the bottom line is this: police and fire will be funded. You police officers out there listening to the program, first of all, thank you for what you do, firemen as well. But I think you guys are going to be funded. And here's the thing, if that is what happens down, the pike in the future, the idea of there being a permanent funding stream for police and fire, so you guys no longer have to be used as political pawns to try to scare people, is a good thing, and that's better government than what we've had. Again, I was here. This is my 10th year in radio. I'm approaching the official 10-year anniversary, and I one of the first battles that I fought was sales tax increase in the city of Jonesboro. I was on one station, right here, KBTM, and it passed with flying colors. And I remember what was said then, and most people do not remember what was said then and are not willing to hold people accountable now. And so the idea of this sales tax passing last night, that did fail, again by 211 votes, a 12-year tax that would sunset. I was pretty sure that 12 years from now, if it passed, no one would hold people accountable for what was said today 12 years from now, because people just don't remember if you don't follow it every day for a living.
I
wanted to remind you that if you miss the daily live broadcast, you can always catch up and listen across our digital platforms on your smartphone or computer. First, you can watch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. From here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find our station. Conduit News is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And now you know you've got many options to watch what we do, listen to what we do, and find out what government is doing in your name. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Arkansas to get abortions is not all that high. And in fact, the story kind of was like, oh, no, this is terrible that people are leaving Arkansas to have abortions. And I thought to myself, I said, we wouldn't be upset if people were having to leave Arkansas to buy meth, for example, or to engage in human trafficking. Abortion is bad. I mean, it's a scourge on women who are being preyed upon by these abortion doctors because the women feel like they don't have any other choice, but they do. And obviously, it takes the life of an unborn child. That's unacceptable as a means of birth control, and we all know that. So I found it kind of bizarre, in a way, that a responsible journalist would write such a story as if we need to protect this barbaric and awful practice.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show this morning. We do have a special treat back with us from the organization We Build the Wall. We have Marianne Mendoza is back with us. Marianne, how are you this morning?
I'm great, Paul. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So first off, I want to get to a little news. We got this Democrat lawmaker from Arizona. But how are the efforts right now? How's everything going with the We Build the Wall effort?
We are doing great. As you know, we finished our project in Sunland Park, New Mexico, which ended up being a beautiful piece of border security. Not only, a fence, but also paved road, lights, sensors, and we are now working on a second and third project, but we need our fellow Americans to keep donating so we can keep pushing forward.
And they can donate, where can they donate? WeBuildTheWall.com?
WeBuildTheWall.us.
.us, that's right, .us. That's an easy one to remember. I should have remembered it. So I've got this headline here from a website called Common Dreams, and I'm going to show it to the audience right here. Democrat lawmaker warns whether you call it a fence or a wall, Trump is winning on the border. And this is not necessarily a Democrat that is proud of this. It's Representative Raul Grijalva. I think I'm pronouncing that right. They basically, some Democrats are warning their base, say, hey, look, the president's actually getting something accomplished. What are your thoughts?
Well, Raul Grijalva is the cartel congressman, is how he's dubbed in Arizona. He's been in that position for far too long. He does know, that the president is gaining ground, as are the American people with their projects We Build the Wall do. But we have Angel Dad Steve Ronnebeck, who's actually running on the Republican ticket in the primaries against Raul, trying to get him out of there. He's very comfortable. A lot of crime and nefarious things go on along that border. He's not very present in his, district. So, we all know he's a socialist. He openly admits that. He's part of the Socialist Party there in D.C. and, has a little clan around him in Congress who, obviously supports the socialist agenda also.
So you were saying, you said Steve Ronnebeck is actually challenging him. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yes, he is.
I think that's
He
fantastic.
needs everybody's support.
Yeah, I mean, we've interviewed Steve on the program, and again, you mentioned he's an angel dad, and you're also an angel mom. Your son was killed by an illegal alien, and you mentioned that Grijalva is a socialist, and what's frustrating is he's from a border state. Can you talk a little bit about why you think socialists are so comfortable with open borders?
Well, it's the liberal socialist mindset that, everybody has a right to go anywhere. Everybody deserves everything for free. And unfortunately, that doesn't work very well, especially for Arizona. Anywhere in this nation, it doesn't work well. I don't know much about him to say why. He's comfortable with that himself. I just know that the things that he's done in southern Arizona, the policies that he has, backed up, totally been against a conservative platform. And it's just, we have too many of these democratic socialist mindset in Arizona. We've got another one down on the southern border. People are trying to encourage me to run against her. And hopefully we've got enough good conservative people who are going to run in this election. I just posted an article the other day about a Muslim who ran in Georgia unopposed, state level, but 100% supports open borders. Wants to have an F rating from the NRA. We've got people like this who are running for Congress, socialists and Muslim people who I really don't think belong in politics, especially when they uphold their ideals in a country, in a free nation.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of times, you start to think some people have such a radical ideology. If they got what they wanted, it would not mean that the Constitution would be the law of the land. And so that is always very concerning. Back to this piece, I do have to point out that this Congressman, Raul Grijalva, he says that the wall is, quote, an intentional symbol of hate and fear, not a security measure. And I have to say, I have seen this for a while now from the left. You've got other leaders that have called the wall an immoral concept. And yet, anytime I talk about building the wall, I try to also mention the human trafficking, the sex trafficking that's going on. So if they want to call the wall immoral and claim the moral high ground when a wall would prevent and disincentivize basically modern day human slavery, I got to call a foul on that one, Marianne. I
agree with you 100%, and I talk about that a lot, that they're aiding and abetting modern-day slavery. You're absolutely right. And this, they talk about morals, yet they don't care what's happening to these women and children who are enticed to come to the border. The politicians have made it very, very easy for the cartel to make more money on human smuggling right now than they are on drug trafficking. And, the whole picture is what a lot of these liberal Americans who read a headline or listen to a politician say the wall's immoral. They don't look into it any further than that. They just go with what they're told. If they looked at the broad, big picture of what's happening to people, not only American victims, once these bad guys get here, but the victims all along the way, and the women and children who, like you said, are sex trafficked. It's sickening, and Americans need to wake up. The wall needs to happen, not only to stop the flow in, but to stop the flow of the criminals who are deported from having them come back over, too.
We're talking with Marianne Mendoza. She's an angel mom. She's from the organization We Build the Wall. You can donate if you want to see private groups, private money try to or continue to build the wall. It's webuildthewall.us. Back to this piece here. I do have to point out that people like this congressman and others are so committed to open borders that they're disagreeing with the Washington Post. So the president comes out and says, we're building the wall. We're building new sections of the wall. The Washington Post comes out and tries to fact check and be like, no, you're not. You're a liar. And then Democrats who are so committed to the open borders agenda, they're now trying to fact check the Washington Post. That's the real story here, I think, and trying to tell their base that don't listen to the Washington Post on this because we need this to motivate us to, continue with our socialist ideas. We have this guy on Twitter, Miles Traffigan. Quote, the press is falsely claiming that no new border wall has been built. Very inaccurate and irresponsible reporting. See Representative Raul Grijalva tweet thread about this, and it mentions that he's saying, no, we need to be alarmed that the president is actually being successful. So how do you respond to that, Marianne, with the media trying to do what they're trying to do, trying to tell everybody that the president is not actually accomplishing what he said he wanted to accomplish?
Well, it's always been a hit piece on him no matter what. No matter what he does, it's not the right thing. And they want, the American people to think that he's a failure, that he's not accomplishing anything that he said he was going to during his campaign. We all know that there is new wall being built. I know for a fact in southern Arizona there were projects that were earmarked. He moved ahead with them. And yes, there are sections of walls that are being replaced, and they need to be replaced because they're antiquated. People are just climbing over them, not tall enough. And so in reality, it is new wall being built, even though it's sections that are being replaced that aren't effective. It's new wall being built. So I'm glad he's being, successful in that. It's a sad day when our media isn't just that, reporting on the truth. And then you've got, this whole agenda in Washington that, in reality, that those liberals would have just agreed with that article. But because Raul wants to make sure that his buddies know that, hey, they are being successful, we've got to stop it, they're encouraging the liberal base to run even harder and fly even bigger to get the results they want for the 2020 election.
Speaking of 2020, I'm glad you brought that up. I'd like to get your opinion as somebody who's working with We Build the Wall, also an angel mom. In 2016, illegal immigration, illegal aliens were a big part of President Trump's, stump speeches. He says he's going to stop it. It played a big role in 2016. Do you think it's going to play the same role in 2020 or maybe larger?
I don't know, but I think it has just as an important place in a campaign because so much of what's wrong in our country, goes right back to illegal immigration. The biggest thing is how much money taxpayers, are the taxpayer money is being used to support these people. $136 billion a year. And what's happening in our school systems? What's happening with our welfare system? What's happening with our assisted living? All the things that are wrong in a state and shortages in budget are because of illegal immigration in our country. And if you don't think that this is going to be a bigger problem in the coming years, in 2020 and 21 and 22, with the influx that's happened this past year, that $136 billion figure of what the country spends to support illegals is probably, going to be closer to $225 billion, I would imagine. With the influx of people that have come in. So, yes, it is just the same as biggest problem as it was in 2016, if not bigger, I think.
Well, and, hopefully the president, will continue to do what he's doing.
and have even more success. And I think it does need to be obviously a big issue as well, because it's something that the Democrats are trying to stop him, and they have tried to stop him from doing what he was elected to do. Marianne Mendoza, it's always great to talk to you, and wish you success, continued success with the We Build the Wall project.
We are actually getting ready to embark on a 9-day road trip to D.C. People can go to MakeAmericaSafeAgainTour.com, see our venues along the way, and then we will end up in D.C. on September 25th for a big Badges and Angels rally at the Capitol, 10 o'clock on September 25th. But our road trip is all about We Build the Wall and angel families, and we're going to be pointing out to Middle America that angel families are the end result of open borders, and we need to secure our borders.
Marianne, God bless you. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and be safe. Be safe in the road trip. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Paul.
All righty. Marianne Mendoza, everybody. We're going to take a break. Back in a moment. I wanted to remind you that if you miss the daily live broadcast, you can always catch up and listen across our digital platforms on your smartphone or computer. First, you can watch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. From here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find our station. Conduit News is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And now you know. You've got many options to watch what we do, listen to what we do, and find out what government is doing in your name. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I mean, I know it's statistics. People are reporting the numbers. Again, it says here in 2017, about 1 in 5 abortions that Arkansans obtained took place out of state. That number right there, it could just be because people live in the Eastern District of Arkansas, don't want to travel longer to Little Rock. They'd rather go into Memphis and Tennessee.
Well, and that's true. Yeah, Paul, and that's true if you live up in Fayetteville area. Tulsa is a lot closer than Little Rock is. If you live down in southwest Arkansas, then people may go down to Texas or to Louisiana, down in Shreveport. So that's always been the case. But, see, I think the liberal media wants to paint this narrative that, oh, no, these abortion laws have made it so that women are suffering now. Well, I got news for you. Women are suffering terribly because they had an abortion, and they have deep regret for it.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go. Oh, you know what I just realized? The fact that Jonesboro defeated a tax increase in a special election, which is unheard. I mean, just doesn't happen very often. Like 25% of the time does that happen, according to the statistics. I wonder what that says for the half-cent sales tax that we're going to be asked to vote on in 2020 for roads that the legislature, they passed, they passed a law wanting us to vote on a new tax. So right now, the half cent on our sales tax, our state sales tax, is set to expire in 2022. And so in 2020, the legislature decided to ask us to maintain that sales tax rate for roads, and it's a massive tax increase for roads and bridges and everything else. So I wonder, you had Fort Smith that defeated a tax for a Marshall Museum earlier this year. They didn't want to be taxed more. Now you have Jonesboro. You have other communities facing and trying to fight off tax increases as well. We have the gas tax increase that will be going into effect October the 1st. You have local communities wanting more taxes as well. I wonder if the citizens have just had enough, had enough already. It remains to be seen. I do think it's interesting. This is from the Jonesboro Sun this morning. The leader of Team Jonesboro, Mr. McDaniel, says this to the Jonesboro Sun, quote, "You take out Councilman Bobby Long's last-minute interjection of confusion for the exclusive purpose of derailing the race. Is it a different race? I think so. That was an irresponsible act by a city councilman to do such a thing, to interject that level of confusion into the race at the very last minute." So Team Jonesboro, or Mr. McDaniel, is blaming Councilman Bobby Long for having a competing idea and saying, you know what, if this fails, I will put forth a resolution to have a permanent tax for police and fire, just for police and fire, because that's what a lot of people support, but they don't support all this other stuff. They're now saying that caused confusion, which is not accurate. It didn't cause confusion. It was clear. It's not like it was a confusing idea or a confusing proposal to put forth a resolution that would, do a separate. There's nothing confusing about that. Now, did it give people? Honestly, it was an act of leadership, and the fact that this tax failed should make every person on the city council, except Councilman Bobby Long, step back and ask themselves if they're really representing the people. I mean, at the very least, yeah, it failed by 211 votes. You can't claim a mandate either way. But we can definitely say that whatever process they were hoping to use to raise taxes, it's not going to work. So are there still issues that need to be addressed? Absolutely. But a lot of people, you talk to a lot of people, it's pretty clear that the way this was structured, the way the people that wanted more money from the taxpayers or the tax base, the way they went about it, it just didn't set well with a lot of people. And there's a lot of mistrust out there. And until you fix those trust issues with what the politicians were going to do with the money, and I got to tell you, having some tax out there where half a cent is going to, we think maybe this, we think maybe that, but we're going to leave it up to a committee and we're going to leave it up. That's not a way to instill trust. Taxpayers want to know what their money is going to be spent on. That's how it's done, right? For example, I don't like it, but we're going to be paying more at the pump in a gas tax. October the 1st. You know where that money's going, right? Yeah, it's going to go pay for roads, right? Roads. We know what it's going to be pay. And by matter of fact, back in 2012, when Jonathan Barnett's proposals, former state representative Jonathan Barnett, when he came out with his half cent that we're going to be asked to vote again on in 2020. But in 2012, when he came out with that it was even more specific. It wasn't just generic for roads. It was specific projects. And the people voted for specific They voted for the tax increase, but we knew it was spelled out in the language that the money will be used for this stretch of highway or that stretch of highway or this stretch of highway. And the people said, you know what, okay, all right. You want to take more money for us and you want to use it on this specific project, great. But those of you, I'm sorry to keep harping on the Team Jonesboro, or I'm sorry, the sales tax thing, but here's another thing. This is another reason why this tax failed, okay? Anybody who knows me, and I'm talking about the people who grew up with me, my peer group. If you know me at all, you know that I love where I grew up. I love Jonesboro. I was born here. I was raised here. I went to school here, high school, went to Arkansas State. I love Jonesboro. I love this community, love this town. If you truly know me, then you know this is a fact. And to listen to the messaging of Team Jonesboro, whether or not we do need a children's museum to maintain a stable of medical professionals, okay? Whether or not we need that or not, okay? If you were to listen to the messaging that was coming up, a lot of people, it's as if you woke up and all of a sudden Jonesboro was, Hill Valley and the skewed alternate timeline of 1985. You know what I mean? Where I'm just like, wow, apparently I've been living in a terrible place my whole life and I didn't even know it. Because that's kind of how it was perceived. That was how it was perceived by me. And again, I'm a fan of where I live. The people on both sides of this issue, of course they want their community to be safer, and of course they would love for there to be other things to do. Maybe some people think maybe it should be more privately funded or private money that comes in and does some of this stuff. That's always an option. Or maybe, an attempt to recruit that. Anyway, I'm just saying, if you believe in less taxes that produces economic growth and that economic growth gives more money to the government, see, that's what I believe. But if I believe that, I'm not on Team Jonesboro. Right? I'm not for Jonesboro because I believe that lower taxes produces more businesses, more jobs. Those jobs produce more taxpayers, more tax revenue goes to the city, and then you can build your aquatic center. But if you believe in that philosophy, you weren't on Team Jonesboro that just wanted a tax increase and reward the same government that has made irresponsible decisions with the taxpayer money. And this is a microcosm, by the way, of what you can see in other state governments in other city governments, county governments, as well as our state government down at the Marble Palace in Little Rock. And so, go back to the drawing board. I think police and fire is going to get funded. I think that's going to happen one way or the other. It'd be great to happen in a general election where you have 40-50% voter turnout, which you will because Donald Trump is running for president. And so, anyway, I that's kind of all I have to say about it. I think it's the establishment was certainly rejected. A lot of people didn't think, that this was going to happen. But, at the very least, 211 votes, 51-49. 51% of the people that voted said, you know what, I don't want to be taxed more at this time. At this time, no thank you.
Unpopular opinion, you want an aquatic center? You want it real bad?
Yes.
Make Craighead County a wet county.
That was one proposal.
Take the taxes from that, from the local taxes for alcohol, put it towards that.
Somebody actually wrote, I can't remember who, but somebody wrote an article or a letter to the editor or something to that effect, Now, there's a lot of people that don't want that to happen, but in terms of the wet-dry issue, but, there are other ideas out there. Okay, we got one more hour coming your way next. We're going to go over a very important article. Back in a minute.
Broadcasting from the Baker Implement Studios. Baker Implement, serving you with 11 convenient locations. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM Jonesboro.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Cause of it. And, I think women are beginning to take matters into their own hands. They know that there are other choices now where they don't have to be backed into a corner and abortion is the only way. There's adoption, there's keeping the baby, there's other options for them. And so I think we're seeing them exercise that. In fact, Paul, it's undeniable that the number of abortions nationwide is way down. It's down to about where it was back in the 70s, and that's true here in Arkansas. It's about half what it was back in the early 1990s when I started working in this arena. And so there have been great strides made, and I wish that reporter that wrote that story would have talked about that rather than this sob story somehow that people can't get an abortion in Arkansas. The truth is they can, and I think it was just unfortunate the way the story was put together.
Well, and I'll say this, I don't even mind. I mean, even if the premise is true, that, Arkansas's anti-abortion laws are making people travel out of state to get abortions, I got no problem with that. Like, isn't that the point? I mean, we're trying to stop abortion, and I would rather them have a longer drive and have to think about, we're trying to stop you from killing your child,
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of it. And so you're exactly right. And to my point earlier, if people had to cross state lines to engage in human trafficking, we would say, great. I mean, we don't want it to happen over there, but we're glad it's not happening here in our state. Or if they had to cross state lines to engage in other bad activities, we would say, well, good, at least it's not happening here on our watch in our state. And that's what we're striving for. And, to the people that may be facing an unplanned pregnancy, they need to know that there are compassionate people out there at the pregnancy centers that are around the state. There are over 40 of them, way more of them than there are abortion facilities, who will help women with an unplanned pregnancy. Our goal ought to be to reduce the demand for abortion so that people just don't want to get one. And we're getting there. And I think this is unsettling to the people that somehow think abortion is still a good thing, and it's not.
You mentioned Planned Parenthood, these preying on women. It is almost, they make money off of the abortion, and we also know that they are now engaged in selling the body parts of children. And so the incentive is really disgusting to me. A matter of fact, big story that very few people want to talk about is the STEM Express CEO admitting in court to selling beating baby hearts, intact baby heads.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
For last hour, Jackie on Facebook, they say it's for roads, Paul, but do you really believe that? I see what you're saying, hey, but at least they have the... At least they say it's for something specific. Anyway, we had last night, those of you that don't know, this is hour number 2. We talked about the Jonesboro sales tax last hour. I'm not going to harp on it a lot this hour, so you can get the podcast or check out the show, when it archives after we're done here in about 55 minutes. But it did fail. If you're just joining us, the Jonesboro sales tax did fail last night by 211 votes. And this was a big victory for, I think, grassroots people who had to mobilize at and were outspent by very well-funded, well-organized, what is called Team Jonesboro. The media was for it. The police chief was for it, the fire chief, the mayor, the 11 out of 12 city council members were all for it, and the people said no. So I'll say this again. I think police and fire are going to get funded with an increase in the future, but it may not be all this other stuff that we didn't have a clue what it was going to be spent on. We had a roundabout, maybe this, maybe this, maybe this, maybe this, but people say no, and they didn't want to reward the same city government that had made irresponsible decisions. They didn't want to reward that negative behavior with more taxpayer money. And that's really the big takeaway from what happened last night in Jonesboro. And this, of course, is going to happen in other communities, local communities. Not only is the state government taxing this more, $70 million net tax increase, gas tax starting on October 1st, internet tax already in full swing. Oh, by the way, if I were Team Jonesboro right now, I would be wanting to know what the revenue stream for the new internet sales tax that's coming into Jonesboro is. And I would demand that money, that new revenue, because that's what it is, go to fund what you want to fund. I mean, the internet sales tax, a lot of people don't understand. That's a lot of new revenue coming in to governments all across Arkansas. Anyway, sorry. All right, here we go. This next article, and it's also September 11th, 18 years ago. That's crazy. That is absolutely wild that it's been that long. But I want to start this hour, and I want to tell you about what I think is one of the greatest articles I've ever read by David Ferguson about the late former Senator Linda Collins. This is a comprehensive article. Folks, if you don't remember the topics of what this article is going to cover, then just take it from me. This is the truth about what happens when you stick to your principles. David Ferguson and Linda Collins were very good friends. David Ferguson, a former head of the Bureau of Legislative Research for 30 years, a 30-year career in there. And this is what he writes, conduitforaction.org. It's been almost 3 months since Linda Collins was found murdered. I attended her funeral, but it's still hard to accept my friend is gone. I keep expecting a call or text saying, I will be passing through town. Would you and Susan like to meet me for a late supper? Some people have a few good friends. Other people tend to have a lot of casual acquaintances. But Linda had lots of close friends who she cared about very much. She made us all feel special because to her, we were special. I first met Linda when she decided, when she was elected as a state representative in 2010. I was the director of the Bureau of Legislative Research and was introducing myself to new legislators. She was from my home area, and we quickly became friends. She went by Linda Collins Smith back then, but after her divorce, she dropped the hyphenated part. In the decades I worked for the legislature, I met a lot of good people, but no other legislator can compare to her for her dedication to keeping her promises. It's not unusual for a conservative politician to identify as pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-family values, for limited government, and for lower taxes. But identifying as a conservative and voting conservative are two different things. Some politicians merely say those things to get elected. Others want to vote conservative but have a hard time keeping campaign promises. There's tremendous pressure from influential politicians who want them to water down their promises for political reasons, and big businesses that push them to get a bigger slice of the government pie. The pressure is great, greater than most people realize. Hands down, Linda was the strongest example I've ever seen of a politician committed to keeping her promises in the face of the Goliaths who stand in the way, insisting, be pragmatic. Pragmatic can be a code word meaning conservatives shouldn't keep their promises and instead join the liberal big government crowd. Above all, Linda was a Christian and was always guided by her belief. She enjoyed being in the legislature, but she would not fall in line with leaders in order to have a smooth path to re-election. Re-election always took a back seat, as you'll see in this article, and the establishment types of both parties made her pay for not getting in line. If you are a fat cat who prefers to elect a chameleon who will pay you back for your support by helping you get a bigger slice of the government pie, then Linda was not for you. Linda infuriated many politicians because in seeing her promise-keeping, they saw what they were not. Even if you are a liberal who opposed every bill she supported, Linda is still an example of the strength and dedication you would hope for in a politician representing your views. David Ferguson writes, I want to tell you about a few political struggles Linda took on. I hope it will help you see her uncommon dedication to principle. Uncommon. In telling about these struggles, you will see that she found herself having to first fight Democrat leaders and then Republican leaders. Some who read this will find themselves aligned not with Linda, but with Democrats or with pragmatic or left-leaning Republicans. If so, that's okay, because my point here is not to criticize her opponents. Instead, the point here is to help you see that Linda meant what she said what she meant, and gave it 100%. Linda was elected to the House of Representatives in 2010 as a Democrat. Linda was about as far removed from being a Democrat as a person could be, so why did she run as one? For decades, the Arkansas Democrat Party sold itself to voters as the Big Tent Party, meaning it welcomed both liberal and conservatives as candidates and as voters. It had a monopoly on politics. Even in 2010, many Arkansas Democrats still called their party the Big Tent Party. That idea was strong in Pocahontas, where Linda lived, and in most of Northeast Arkansas. Nearly all politicians in that area still ran as Democrats, even though many considered themselves to be conservative. What Linda and the voters didn't realize was the political atmosphere in Little Rock had changed. In Little Rock, conservative Democrats were expected to get in line and support some liberal policies and big government expenditures when Democrat leaders told them it was an important vote. Yet, as a state representative, Linda didn't get in line. Instead, she followed up on her promises by supporting legislation that was pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-family values, anti-tax increase, and pro-smaller government. David Ferguson writes, I don't recall which of her votes was the final straw, but she said after one vote in 2011, she was surrounded by leaders of the House of Representatives who angrily instructed her she would not cross leadership again and would fall in line. Linda was shocked and hurt by the men who towered over her. Quote, they talked to me like a dog, she said. Bullies, Democrat and Republican, would sometimes make her cry, but she would not be bullied. Her tears were not a sign that she would tuck tail and run. Instead, with her tears, she would get bowed up and all the more determined to do what she believed to be right. Powerful politicians were not just as important to her as her promises, and not as important as the people back home. Realizing the big tent party of the Democrats no longer existed, Linda switched parties and became a Republican. But becoming a Republican was no trivial matter back then. The Republican Party was still the minority in Arkansas, and the voters in Northeast Arkansas had a consistent record of electing Democrats. She switched despite it being a hard thing to do politically. The voters would either agree with her or not, and so be it, because it had to be done. She switched because the Republican principles had been her principles all along. The principles are stated in the Arkansas Republican Party platform: the power of faith in God, the sanctity of life, individual responsibility and initiative, individual freedom, private property, lower taxes, strong national defense, the personal right to bear arms, the equal and just enforcement of the law, and separate and equal branches of government. Democrat governor. Her switch to the Republican Party came at a vulnerable time. It happened while Governor Mike Beebe, Attorney General Dustin McDaniel, and Secretary of State Mark Martin were redrawing the districts of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Beebe and McDaniel were Democrats, which meant they could ignore Republican Mark Martin and draw the districts to suit themselves. The House district where she lived was drawn so the Democrats could eliminate at least one Republican from the House of Representatives. They put Linda and another Republican incumbent, Lori Benedict, in the same district. Linda refused to run against Lori. After all, Lori had run as a Republican in 2010, and Linda had not. Lori ran for re-election to the House, but the new boundaries put the voter strength on the opposite end of the district, and she lost to Democrat Scott Baltz. As for Linda, she made the decision to run for the Arkansas Senate. Political observers saw it as an uphill battle. The biggest population area in the Senate district was on the opposite end of the district in Independence County, where Senator David Wyatt, the popular Democratic incumbent, lived. Linda did very well, but lost the election, 51.2% to 48.8%. Linda got another opportunity to run for the Senate 2 years later in 2014 because following reapportionment, Senator Wyatt drew a 2-year term. Linda announced as a candidate again. Wyatt did not run for re-election, and Linda faced another Independence County resident and sitting state representative, James McLean. People associated with her campaign were worried Linda was spending too much time out of the district and that she needed to focus only on her race. She had been so close in 2012. What was she doing? She was taking some of her campaign time to promote the Republican Party across the state. She also took time to recruit Republican candidates for other offices, helped other Republican candidates get organized, and made speeches to fire up Republican women in other areas of the state. She was basically a Republican evangelist, and her work helped add to the number of Republicans elected in 2014. Her work outside her district didn't mean she was taking her race lightly. She worked hard on her campaign while also managing her business. She spent long hours every day working as hard as she could. Friends got text messages from her at all hours. Can you talk? Linda won the election. Not only did the Republicans go into 2015 having a majority of the House and Senate, they also took the governor's office. Linda, David Ferguson writes, was excited about being part of a Republican majority and about working with a Republican governor. But it didn't take long for Linda to find herself on the opposite side of the governor and his two senator nephews. The phone rang, David writes. It was Linda. I messed up. What can I do? Earlier in the day, the Senate had traveled to attend the funeral of a former senator. Senate leaders told the senators when they got back to Little Rock they would finish the day considering a few non-controversial bills. One of those non-controversial bills was the governor's income tax cut for middle-income taxpayers. During the consideration of a supposed non-controversial bill, she voted for the middle-income tax cut, not realizing it had just been amended to add a section the governor wanted. To make up for some of the revenue that would be lost from the tax cut, the new section took away a capital gains tax cut passed by Republicans just 2 years earlier and had just become effective that month. Had she realized the non-controversial agenda included this controversial tax increase, she would have not voted for it. Linda was so embarrassed, she took the unusual step of making a motion to recall the bill from the House of Representatives so the Senate could redo the vote. Her motion failed, and her move embarrassed and upset big government politicians. Just a few days had passed since the beginning of that legislative session, and Linda was already known as not a team player by those who wanted to advance anything on the governor's agenda. In 2017, helping some veterans by exempting military retirement pay from the state income tax was on everybody's list. But the approaches were different. The governor proposed raising several taxes to at least offset the revenue the state would lose from exempting military retirement pay. Linda opposed the tax increases and wanted the state to absorb the tax cut into the budget since tax revenues were growing and she thought little effort had been made to curb state spending. Even the military retirees who have part of their tax cut taken away by the new taxes included in the bill. She compared the governor's version to leaving a man behind because although military retirees would get a benefit, veterans without military retirement would only get higher taxes. Video of the debate shows the governor's nephew, Senator Jim Hendren, attacking Linda personally by questioning her support for the military because she opposed the plan. She called me just a few minutes later. I think she called to vent and calm down before she was scheduled to do a radio interview. With her voice cracking, she said, "He talked to me like a dog." David Ferguson writes, I immediately remembered the other time I heard her use that phrase. It was when Democrat leadership surrounded her and chewed her out. Now, it was a Republican leader. Just as with the Democrats, the results were the same. She bowed up and was more determined than ever to stand for her principles. There were other tax increases that she also voted against, such as the governor's special tire tax on mounting new or used tires. Must have been very frustrating to leaders that she wouldn't break her promises and get in line. In her 2014 campaign for Senate, Linda had promised to work for the repeal of Obamacare Medicaid expansion in Arkansas, now called Arkansas Works, which, despite work-related requirements, primarily applies to able-bodied working-age adults who do not work. Everyone knew her pledge. It had been posted on large billboards on the highway on the south side as you approach the city of Batesville. She viewed the program as draining Arkansas funds that she thought could be better used helping the needy citizens, such as our disabled citizens, or in addressing other urgent needs. Again, her pledge put her at odds with Governor Hutchinson, who championed the program. In 2016, she and some other senators vowed to block funding for the Obamacare program. The administration responded by claiming that she and the other senators would be responsible for the loss of federal funds going into the program and would cause drastic budget cuts all throughout the state budget. A list of claimed cuts was circulated, and indeed, everything from health care to schools. It was pain point politics, but the Batesville Guard newspaper eagerly attacked Linda based on the outlandish list. A few senators backed down, but Linda wasn't one of them. The governor got the funding continued, but only after he went to the unusual step of telling legislators to let the restriction against Obamacare funding be added to the budget bill, because he would then later veto the restriction. The Batesville Guard article was widely read and assumed to be true by uninformed readers. It weakened her support in the Batesville area, and it may have been the moment it was decided to find an opponent to take her out in the next election. In 2017, Representative Charlie Collins put a simple but controversial bill up about college employees who wanted to be able to carry weapons on campus. Representative Collins' bill sailed through the House, but the governor's nephew, Jeremy Hutchinson, was the chair of the Judiciary Committee where it would be considered. Hutchinson blocked the bill from being considered when there appeared to be enough votes to pass the bill in the committee. Linda's name was added as a co-sponsor of the bill by the amendment, but Senator Hutchinson had other amendments added, many restrictions, limitations, and requirements that Linda opposed. The restrictions appeared to be intended to weaken support for the bill if it passed, or if it passed. Linda led the charge against the amendments, rallying Arkansas gun rights advocates. The NRA sent out an email alert to members saying Linda had proposed an amendment to make the bill a straightforward gun rights bill, and urged members to support her amendment. But then the NRA quickly reversed course and dropped support for Linda's amendment to take a deal from the administration. Linda served on the Ethics Committee. This article, we're going to have to take a break. I want to continue this. I want to continue this on the other side of the hour, but this is, we've got to take a break right now. We'll be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. This is an effort by California to go after, I think, the two people who are heroes in exposing this practice, but they're going after them, saying that you shouldn't have recorded them. You recorded a private conversation, you broke our laws. And yet, in doing so, more information is coming out about the barbaric practices of the abortion industry.
Well, and see, that story should have been top of the page in the newspaper. It should have been top of the news on the evening news. But you're right, Paul. It's buried back there. You have to search around on the internet to find it. But it's undeniable that STEM Express, Planned Parenthood, these outfits were and may still be trafficking in the aborted baby parts. I mean, we're talking heads, hearts. It's awful what they were doing, and I applaud the people that put their reputation and their lives out there on the line to
exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being with us. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the program. The article I was just reading from is up right now at conduit4action.org. If you want to take a look at it and finish the rest of it, it goes on a little bit longer. It is compelling, and what you need to know is it's the truth. As I was saying last hour, just about tax increases and promises that are made when you're going in decades, where 10 years from now, or we'll sunset, or 12 years. Folks, you need to trust the people that are actually watching this stuff and do it for a living, that are trying to speak truth to power in government. And I'm telling you, I read that article yesterday afternoon, and I just thought to myself, I mean, it's comprehensive, And I'm so thankful for David Ferguson. I'm thankful for the legacy of Senator Linda Collins as well, because her work is, you can still see her work in the state of Arkansas, and the article talks about that as well. We're going to be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. I wanted to remind you that if you miss the daily live broadcast, you can always catch up and listen across our digital platforms on your smartphone or computer. First, you can watch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. From here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find our station. Conduit News is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And now you know. You've got many options to watch what we do, listen to what we do, and find out what government is doing in your name. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Expose this stuff, and instead of cracking down on Planned Parenthood, people like California Attorney General Kamala Harris went after the good guys and trying to grind them into the dirt for exposing this awful thing. And again, that's the double standard that exists when it comes to abortion. If they were exposing any other evil in our society, they would be heralded as heroes, and they'd be on Good Morning America, and they would be celebrated. But not so with this. And that just shows you how upside down things are when it comes to this issue.
I got to ask you one more thing. I don't know if you heard what Bernie Sanders said last week in the climate debate when he said that one of the ways to control climate change or control the weather is by controlling the population increase.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. I caught this article in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Let's see here. It's a pretty good one. Frank Lockwood writes that for President Donald Trump, Buy American is a frequent campaign theme. For Randolph County businessman Chad Overman, it's a business model. American-made general store, which Overman opened last year, is located at the intersection of Pace Road and US 67. The easiest way to find it is to follow the flag. Buy American. Joining us now, we have the owner of American-Made General Store, Pocahontas. Chad Overman is with us. Chad, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So tell me a little bit about your store and tell me why, this goal of buying American is important.
Okay, well, it all started about 6 or 7 years ago, and I don't know where the idea came up, but I'm a veteran from the Iraq War and infantry veteran.
Thank you for your service.
And pretty patriotic, and I thought, well, hey, if I put American products in front of the American shopper at a reasonable price, people will buy them, and hopefully over time, contribute to the less jobs going overseas, or keeping more jobs in the USA, creating a stronger country. So that was my plan, and I told myself I'd start it in 5 years, and a year and a half ago I kicked it off, and we've got a 15,000 square foot store here in Pocahontas. I've never been in retail. I have several other construction businesses, but this is my first retail endeavor. It's been quite the experience.
So that's fantastic that you're in construction and you go out and you try to do something new. And so has it been tough to find American products, American-made products, and sell them for profit? Has that been hard?
Well, finding the products, I spent 2 years before I opened the store just researching. I traveled around looking at, visiting factories. I went to trade shows. And the finding the products wasn't the issue. It was, getting the products down within the price of foreign-made products. And in a small town like Pocahontas, it's hard to sell a product for any more than the foreign-made counterpart. Now, some items that are different than the big retailers are selling, it's not too big a deal, like maybe some Amish jams and jellies and stuff like that. But when it's the same product that's at a big box retailer, it's competitive now. My plan was to eventually, just sell the basics in my store and kind of get a store that would work in every town in America. But I'm learning that my store is becoming more of like a travel destination. People from Jonesboro, Paragould travel up here. We've had as far away as Little Rock come up here. So I don't know if that was my point, but it's working now. So I guess I'll have to carry on that direction in the store. Maybe over time it can become more of a everyday store that would work in any town, but most likely it's going to be in large centers.
Okay, well, so tell me about the state room.
All right, well, it's a small area, about a 16 by 20 or so. That's got I've got gifts from every state in the USA. We've got little figurines made from coal from West Virginia. We've got maple syrup from Vermont. We've got Alaskan salmon. It's been a long time trying to find all these products because you can find barbecue sauce and seasoning from every state, but then you kind of got to dig deeper and find something else, Yeah. So
that's
Navajo jewelry from Arizona. It's a little bit of everything. So.
Wow. By the way, I thank you for your service, infantry, overseas. What do you think? Let me ask you this: what do you think about this trade war that's going on? Is that a good thing, bad thing?
Well, I'm not a fan of everything President Trump, all his policies, but I am in favor of the tariffs he put on. I don't know. I'm also in the steel industry, which I make metal roofing in one of my businesses, and I can't speak for soybeans. I can't speak for computer products or anything as far as the tariffs or if they're working on those ends. But I can speak for my product, which is metal roofing. It was 3 years ago or so. I've been making running foreign-made steel through most of my machines to make the metal roofing. And I knew over time I would have to switch because I'm opening an American-made store. And so I kind of bit down on the bullet, and I spent an extra 10 or 15% to buy American-made steel and started advertising it, And about that time is when the tariffs kicked off, and pretty soon the price of steel, of course, when the tariffs first kicked off last year, it jumped the price of everything in the steel industry up just because the production wasn't there. But after the last year or so, now, this year, it's funny because all my competitors are now offering American-made steel, and which was unheard of last year. And so I really think it works. Now the prices dropped down to where it was last year. So, when you hear articles say, well, the price has shot up and it's costing you more money, that's not correct in the metal and roofing industry. It did jump up for a little while because the production wasn't there to meet the demand. But now that they've gotten more factories up and running, which I've read about, they're able to drop the price back down there, and now you can buy USA-made steel for the same price as foreign-made. So I think it works.
And that's fantastic. Not only for metal roofs, Chad, but national security. The whole steel situation. We got to be able to make our own tanks, and we need to be able to inspect the steel in here in America and not trust the Chinese to not sell us some steel that's not really up to specifications.
Oh yeah, it's a national defense issue too. You know, we one other thing we need to keep is our manufacturing workers. You know, I mean, you know, two things got us out of World War II, and that was our veterans and our American workers. You know, and you know, we're kind of neglecting the American worker and saying, hey, we don't need them in the USA. We don't need those kind of workers. But we really do, because when it comes down to it, when something, you know, I hate to say if it ever happens, another world war or anything like that, we would be, you know, we'd be in trouble without any manufacturing in the USA.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're talking with Chad Overman. He is from Pocahontas. He's a business owner. It's called the American Made General Store. Tell people once again, Chad, where it's located and what your operating hours are, because I want to encourage people to go to the store and take a look at it.
All right, well, you come into Pocahontas on 67 from either direction and just look for the biggest American flag in town. It's about 80 foot tall, so we're right between Burger King, McDonald's, right across from Walmart, and we've got, like I said, 15,000 square foot store, big old LED sign that says American Made. And we're open every day. Throughout the week, we're open 6:30 to 6:30, and same hours on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we're open noon till 6. And we can check us out.
Chad, I really appreciate it. I know you're a patriot, and I appreciate your service for our country overseas. And I wish you the best of luck, sir. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul.
All righty. Have a great day. Folks, we're going to take a break, going to reset, and I'm going to finish up reading this article about the late Senator Linda Collins, because it needs to be read. You need to read it. People need to hear it. It's the truth, and it really is, demonstrative of the dedication she had to principles and her perseverance. It's a great article written by David Ferguson. You should check it out right now, conduitforaction.org. Back in just a moment. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org. And he mentioned abortion specifically as one of the ways you could control the population. To control the weather, mind you. Now, Jerry, listen, I mean, I know you've been around a long time, but it's getting to the point, I mean, I just don't, every time you think they can't go further, they go further, and it's evil. I mean, that is an evil idea.
Well, Paul, you're right. I've been around for a while. In 1970, when I finished high school, they told us that the population explosion was going to create famines throughout the earth. Guess what? In most places on Earth, we have an obesity problem now, and the world population has doubled since I finished high school. You know what? Humans find a way. We find a way to feed ourselves. We find a way to make a go of it. And these people have been crying gloom and doom ever since I was a kid. And I think they're kind of just...
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna start here in the middle of this great article, and if you haven't read it, you need to check it out. It's at conduitforaction.org about the late Senator Linda Collins and her perseverance. Picking up in the middle of the battle for Arkansas gun rights, okay? Linda led the charge against amendments that were added to a gun bill that were meant to torpedo the gun bill. So she led the charge against the amendments, rallying Arkansas gun rights advocates. She made an urgent call to Fox News contributor and Arkansas businesswoman Jan Morgan, saying she needed her help, and Morgan became a powerful ally in the heated debates that lasted days. The NRA sent out an email alert to members saying Linda had proposed an amendment to make the bill a straightforward gun rights bill and urged its members to support her amendment. But then the NRA quickly reversed course and dropped support for Linda's amendment to take a deal from the administration to keep the heavy restrictions in exchange for broadening who could carry and where. The bill passed, still with Linda's name on it, but not with her vote, David Ferguson writes. During the bill signing ceremony, the governor announced he would be pushing for another bill to be quickly passed to add more limitations on where the new law would apply. The NRA called Linda for help to stop the new bill. She thought they had a lot of gall after the NRA betrayed her and gun rights advocates. Linda served on the Arkansas Ethics Commission before seeking political office. She knew the importance of ethics in government. The open secret in the legislature was that some legislators were representing clients in legislative matters, especially Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, who as a lawyer gained clients who just happened to benefit from his representing their interests in state government. In 2017, Linda filed a bill to prohibit attorney legislators and consultant legislators from representing clients before the legislature. The bill failed. It should be noted that Linda and one other senator filed ethics bills that year, and both were targeted and defeated in the Republican primary. It should also be noted that earlier this year, Senator Jeremy Hutchinson pled guilty to accepting bribes to influence legislation. Linda did not live long enough to see that. Sticking to her promises put her in conflict with the agenda of the governor and his senator nephews. Everyone knew this meant she would get an opponent in the 2018 Republican primary. Her 2018 campaign got off to a very late start. Meanwhile, her opponent was busy, and his campaign signs were showing up attached to Governor Hutchinson's signs throughout the district. Pocahontas had suffered from a flood in 2017, and instead of preparing for her campaign, Linda stayed busy trying to assist everyone to get the help they needed during the long recovery. Helping others is just what she did. David Ferguson writes, I can't count the times I would get a call from her seeking advice on how to help someone she thought had been treated wrongly by a state agency. She never just went through the motions of appearing to help. She always worked as hard as she could for them, no matter how much time and effort it took. A much bigger distraction was that her marriage was falling apart. If the distractions had not been there, would it have made any difference in her race? Maybe not. Big money interest had been pushed to the line. or had been pushed to line up against her. During the campaign, she went to a function, I think a charitable auction, where her opponent spoke. Next, some other local officials spoke, and then it was her turn. But for some reason, Linda didn't want to embarrass her opponent, who sat not far away, so she never mentioned him by name. Afterwards, people came up to her wishing her luck and wondering who her opponent was. Her troubles had made her more soft-hearted than a campaign required. She lost the primary, 5,309 to 4,735. It was essentially the second time a governor had taken her out. Once a Democrat and another a Republican. Often when a legislator is defeated for re-election, the outgoing politician will attend a few meetings, basically to say goodbye to friends, and then fade away. Linda did not fade away. Not only did Linda continue to attend meetings, she worked as hard as she could. One of the issues she continued to work on was exposing problems in the operation of Child Protective Services and its willingness to take a child away despite the child's relatives wanting custody. I think the thing she was most proud of from her time in the legislature was her votes for pro-life bills. Many times when she talked about abortion, her emotions would get the best of her, and out would come a deep sigh, "Oh, the babies." She was proud of the times where she was able to convince liberal Democrats to support one of her bills, and proud when she was able to get citizens involved in the political process. She seemed to work harder than ever after she was out of office. David Ferguson writes, "She had more energy than I had seen in a long time. I'm not sure what all she was working on, but she was still attending meetings and promoting causes. She continued her work advocating for grandparents who wanted to adopt their grandchildren, but were not allowed to by the state. Linda was murdered in her own home, stabbed to death. The who and the why remains a mystery to me, even though someone has been charged." David Ferguson writes, "I just hope justice will be done." David Ferguson concludes this truthful piece saying that Linda was not the only politician I know who was willing to take the consequences for standing up for principles. I witnessed politicians on both the left and right do that. What was different about Linda was that she was willing to do that over and over again. A few days ago, I saw a parking lot full where I was told the banquet of the Spring River Friends of the NRA was being held. The organization raises money for shooting sports. Linda co-founded the organization. I think the fruits of her work will show up in many places. I also hope people will remember Linda for her friendship, her faith, her devotion to family, and for being a person who put principles above political expediency. David Ferguson, up right now at conduitforaction.org. Perseverance. This was a fantastic piece. Please, I would really encourage you. I know it's out on our Facebook pages. I know it's on the CFA pages, Conduit News, and I would just encourage you guys, please share this and get this to as many people as you can. It's so good. I mean, if you want to summarize the political career of a former Senator Linda Collins, then please share this article by David Ferguson, who knew her when he was working in government at the Bureau of Legislative Research and then outside of the Bureau. It's fascinating. And I tell you what stands out to me the most is that line in there towards the end where she effectively had been defeated by, the second time she'd have been defeated by a different governor. So Mike Beebe redraws the lines to eliminate her from the legislature, and then Governor Hutchinson, years later, after she's back in the legislature, finds her a primary opponent because she would not fall in line with what the party said were the priorities, because she believed in her principles of limited government. And that to me is just absolutely fascinating. And again, And again, I want to read this one part of the article. David Ferguson writes, some who read this will find themselves aligned not with Linda, but with Democrats or with, quote, pragmatic or left-leaning Republicans. If so, that is okay. Because my point here is not to criticize her opponents. Instead, the point here is to help you see that Linda meant what she said what she meant, and gave it 100%. And she certainly did that. And, man, that is, I respect her legacy so much. And, people on Facebook, let me read some of your comments. People are wanting to know, asking politicians, well, what else are Arkansas politicians going to do to continue this legacy? People saying, Janet on Facebook, thank you, David Ferguson, for your article on Linda. Reggie, thank you, David Ferguson. Jackie, so what will the people do going forward to further Linda's legacy? Anyway, just keep the comments coming in, and it's just so good. And again, please share the article. I just when I read it, I guess there are very few times that you read something that is just so full of truth. It's such a record, and I just want the average person that doesn't know this story, that doesn't know what happened. I just want other people to know. I genuinely want other people to know about this comprehensive summary of her political career, because it was so good. And Linda was my friend, and I was she was my personal friend as well. And the tragedy surrounding her death, there's still such a vacuum of information out there, and a lot of people have questions. But we're just gonna keep waiting for more information on that front. Anyway, so let me know what you think. 870-275-9799. Again, the article is Perseverance. Linda Collins, check it out. We also have a story that we didn't get to at all today, but I was asking yesterday if this North Carolina race was in fact going to be a 2020 test. I know the liberal media, they're not going to hear that today because, of course, the Republicans in North Carolina won last night. Dan Bishop wins a close race in North Carolina's 9th district, but he did win. President Trump taking credit as well because of that big rally they had in North Carolina on Monday evening. And so this is clearly a sign. I think I said this a little bit yesterday. I think people have had now almost 2 years of being reminded of just how crazy the left is. The Democrats are not moderate in any way. I mean, there's hardly any room for anybody who's a Democrat now who is moderate, and the country's being reminded that not only is Nancy Pelosi, just kind of generally annoying, but the Squad and AOC and how they now appear to have maximum influence over the Democrat Party and socialism, and how the American people don't want socialism. I mean, they may want programs that are funded in social safety nets, but they don't want socialism. People have been reminded that they're just awful, not to mention they're wanting to impeach the president, and you can't find a poll, a national poll, where the American people support impeaching President Trump. I think people have just been reminded. I mean, if anything, it's going to help the president get reelected. Okay, here's your meme of the day. Do we have a current? Who is this by? We don't. Okay, we randomly found it. Okay, so this is it's a photo of a Major League Baseball game. It appears to be the Atlanta Braves, where a baseball bat has accidentally come out of the batter's hands, and it's being flung into the stands. Right. It's going right for a little boy's face, and yet you've got a dad that stretches out his arm, blocking the bat, and the arm is entitled Second Amendment. The bat is the active shooter. The little boy is labeled an unarmed citizen. The guy in the back that just got his hand up, kind of like, hey, our thoughts and prayers And then this other guy saying stop his anti-gun legislation. That would it's a pretty funny one. They'll meme anything these days. This is pretty good though. This is pretty good. Oh, and that's the NRA that's scared. Look, the NRA is labeled It certainly makes you think. This will start a debate. We'll post it up at the Conduit News Facebook and Twitter. Arkansas, have a great day. Be safe.